I'm making pork Normandy. This is a classic French dish from the northwest part of France. The dishes in that region tend to be a little bit richer. This has some cream in it, and it also has apple brandy. I think you're gonna really love this. Pair this dish up with some roasted potatoes and a nice side dish like sauteed carrots or string beans, and you will have a beautiful dinner. Dice 1 large onion, and now I have 2 Granny Smith apples. I'm going to keep the skin on, that's part of the recipe. So quarter the apples and then cut them into wedges, maybe 3 or 4 per quarter. And just make sure that you get any seeds out. Place your apples in a bowl, and then you're going to grab a large plate and put about 4 or 5 large tablespoons of granulated sugar all over it. You're going to dip your apples in on both sides, and this way they'll caramelize when you're cooking them. So start out with a large saute pan and 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. You want to melt that butter, and then we're going to start adding the pieces of apple into the pan. And all I really want to do is lightly brown them on both sides. I don't want to cook them till they're falling apart. I want to save some for garnish too at the end. So just take your time and probably a couple of minutes on each side. I didn't clean the pan out, and I'm just adding the rest of the apples to the pan, and you can see all of that incredible caramelization in the bottom. I'm using a pork tenderloin, but you could also use pork chops. They would be just as delicious. I'm trimming off a bit of the fat and also that silver skin that you see on the outside. Now salt and pepper on both sides. You want to flavor this piece of meat so that it's going to taste delicious. I'm adding a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil to a clean pan. The French tend to do this. They use both oil and butter sometimes. It helps stop the butter from burning. So I'm browning the pork tenderloin on both sides. You're not going to cook it thoroughly right now. Just brown it and take it out of the pan. I'm adding the onions to the same pan, so don't wash that out. And now I'm going to brown them till they're light and golden and soft. And I love to add salt. And now I'm going to add the pork back into the pan with any of the drippings. Tuck them right into those onions. I've measured out 1 heaping tablespoon of all-purpose flour, and now I have my apple brandy. And I'm going to put that in right now. And be careful, if you have a gas stove, not to get too close with that brandy, because you don't want to catch anything on fire except maybe a little bit of the pan drippings. So I'm adding the flour now, and I'm just going to mess it around and incorporate it in all of those onions, and it can even go on the pork. You'll see how wonderful this works out later. I have 1 cup of chicken stock. Flip the pork over and also stir those onions up a little bit in that sauce so they incorporate. And you can see it's thickening up already. This is going to be so delicious. So I'm going to add most of those apples back into the pan. I want to keep some for garnish, so put some aside, the nicest looking ones. And I'm going to put a lid on this and cook this for about 10 more minutes. I have a thermometer, and pork should be done at about 145 degrees. Mine went a little bit over, and it was still incredibly juicy and tender. Stir up the concoction in the pan of the sauce and the onions and the apples and put them aside. I'm taking a hand blender and I'm going to puree them. You can use a food processor, or if you have a regular blender, as long as this comes out really smooth. It's going to be really thick, but we're going to take it, put it back in the pan right now. And here's the magic, some heavy cream. We're going to put this in. It's only a half a cup. You could use half and half or light cream if you really want, but this is going to be wonderful. Stir it all up, let it bubble up a little bit, just a few minutes, and salt and pepper it, and taste your sauce, and boy, oh my God, is this good. Put any drippings that came out of the pork while it sat into the sauce and just cook it for another couple of minutes. Now I'm slicing up the pork tenderloin. I really like to keep it the way it is instead of putting it back in the saucepan. And I'm going to now plate it. So take some of your beautiful sauce, maybe 4 or 5 huge spoons of it, and place it on the bottom of a plate. Serve about 3 or 4 pieces of pork tenderloin and then garnish it with the apples, and look how beautiful. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to my channel yet, please do. I would really love it. And if you could give this a like, that would really help too.